Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Lama Life Livestream Event of Lama Tsultrim Allione. I'm Drimé and it's my pleasure to open this gathering today. I'm going to cover just a few details before I turn it over to Lama Tsultrim. First of all, you can already say hello in the chat so that we can get a better feeling of our being here together from different parts of the world. At the end of our gathering, you will have the opportunity to make an offering of dana to Lama Tsultrim, and I will talk more about it towards the end of this event. Let me share with you some of the offerings you can access through Mandala. I will post the link in the chat shortly after I complete my introduction. We just started an incredible course with Rondella Presti called Writing Your Spiritual Care Directive, a Buddhist Plan for the Time of Death. You'd be amazed at how deep exploration in planning and training as a practitioner for the time of dying can impact your life right here and now. It's not too late to join, as this is a 9-week online program. So read a detailed description on our website and see if it's something you might find you need. Then one of the on-site retreats this summer is an introductory training on Tibetan sacred art painting using the beautiful Trikaya temple as the focus, where you can explore Tibetan sacred arts and symbolism associated with the temple. This program, to be held August 16th to 20th, will be taught by a great teacher and artist, Lama Gyurmai Rabke. And coming up on Saturday, July 30th, is the opportunity for everyone to receive the Lung, so oral transmission from Lama Tsultrim Allione for 4 of the core practices in the Mandala community. A Lung is not a practice, but more of a doorway to a given practice. It's a live oral transmission, so it cannot be received through recording, which connects you to the blessing stream of the lineage of a specific practice, and it's traditionally received before receiving teachings. We have a whole section of teachings and practices that can be found on our website, which we call self-paced. That means that they don't have live webcasts or a schedule attached to them. And because of this, they can be accessed completely on your own timeline, and they're more financially accessible. They have the same complete pre-recorded teachings with Lama Tsultrim herself of the live online courses. And once you purchase the course, you will have access in your course library for a full year after purchase. The Lungs are freely given, so if you feel the calling, make sure to register. And those who participate will receive a special access rate for these self-paced courses. Don't miss out this precious and auspicious opportunity. I will be posting the link in the chat very soon. And now it's my great pleasure to give you Lama Tsultrim Allione. Hello, Lama, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Drimé, all the way over there in Poland. And it's great to have people checking in and saying where they're from. And I see someone from Telluride, Ted, old friend, and Austria, Bhutan. Pema Dorje, wow. Coming to Bhutan next year. Gerald from Huntington Beach. Thank you all for letting each other know where you're from and also to give us a little bit of sense of it. It's pretty amazing that we can create a community without seeing each other. I actually really feel it. I feel your presence, and it's kind of like an etheric web that we create together. So let's begin that way. Let's begin by feeling each other, opening to feeling each other, and generating bodhicitta, the intention to do this today, to be together, listening, speaking for the benefit of all beings. Heartfelt intention. It's called raising bodhicitta. So there's actually a feeling that you're generating something, you're aspiring towards something, inspiring toward enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. And feel us all join together with that aspiration, inspiration. Thank you. Yesterday I gave the Bodhisattva vows. Perhaps some of you were there. Maybe you can say if you were there. I gave them for the people that hadn't taken it yet, and also people could renew their vows. It's such a beautiful vow. It brings such a feeling of heart connection because it's based on loving kindness and compassion. That's the reason that you take it. So it was a beautiful experience to do that. So I'd like to begin by reading the prayer requests. These are people that sent in their names, or somebody sent in their name. And so we can direct some energy toward them. They are either having physical or mental problems. And so when I read these names, I'd like you to pause and do your best to tune into that person and send them some love, some healing. And I also believe that this has an impact, actual impact. So the first one is Lisa Meese. She's in Fishers, Indiana. She's having a complicated surgery, July 28th. Oh, Lisa. And Jorn Kommerel, Bleifeld, Germany. Jorn. Eve Ekman, San Francisco, California. She's closely connected to Tara Mandala. She did the study on feeding your demon. She was one of the scholars that did that study. And she works for Apple. She leads their program in meditation at Apple. Oh, Eve in San Francisco. Angela Lee in Tucson, Arizona, praying for guidance in the right path for her studies. Angela. Maggie Alexander and family in Santa Cruz, California. Maggie and her family. And Alejandra Gonzalez Loanza, her husband and children in Soledad, Playa Carmen, Mexico. Alejandra has a brain tumor. Thank you. I thought this morning to do a meditation on a section of the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra is an essentialized form of the Prajnaparamita Sutra. It came during the third development of Prajnaparamita teachings and the Prajnaparamita Sutra. So there was an early period when the 8,000 line Prajnaparamita Sutra was popularized around the time of the millennium, the first millennium, around the time of Christ. And then there was a kind of development and increase in the length of Prajnaparamita Sutra from around 300 to 500 in the time of Christ, after Christ. And then the third period was an essentialization of the Prajnaparamita Sutra. It had gotten very long and very complex, 100,000 lines from 8,000 lines. And then it went back to a few shortened versions, and the most popularized one was the Heart Sutra. So that developed next, and then the fourth period was the Tantric period that developed between 700 and 1200. So the Heart Sutra was around 500, just to give you a little thread of the history of it. So there's a line that says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form is not other than emptiness. Very famous lines. So let's begin with a meditation on form is emptiness. So what I'd like you to do is to keep your eyes open and to just look around where you are right now, or look at your computer, your environment, and notice all the form that you see. You're seeing various different objects. We tend to think of them as solid, but from a Buddhist point of view, they're not. They're empty of that form. Why? Because when you break them down, for example, I'm looking at some chairs and a sofa. When I break those down, it breaks down into the materials that those chairs are made out of, and that sofa. And then if you break those materials down, you get to atoms, molecules, and what the Buddha taught as partless particles. So we know scientifically that when you break those things down, they are partless particles. So let's just meditate for a moment and actually try to experience that. And let go of the name and form that we've given those objects, whatever you're looking at. And open to deconstructing that form down to experience how it is empty of that name and form that we attribute to it, that those are simply interdependent forms, objects that are put together, and we give it a name, like chair. When you break it down to partless particles, and also notice that the partless particles themselves are empty of the solidity that we give them. Part of this is our concept is empty, but they're also empty because they're just things that are put together. There is no actual chair. It's a name we give objects that we have assembled. And notice how you feel when you notice that emptiness. And realize that we are also empty. We have a form, we have a body, but when we deconstruct that and try to see what is it actually, it's a lot of elements that have been put together that will stay together as long as we're alive, but they're constantly changing. We have a name that's been given to us, but we are not that name. And when you break down all the factors of the human personality, the mind, and so on, we are empty of that self that we attribute to ourselves. So feel that emptiness of self. If this becomes frightening for you, don't worry. You can always put it all back together. And just rest in that emptiness. It's quite freeing, actually. You don't have to be mom or somebody's partner or the person you are at work. When you break all that down, those are just concepts that people have about you. And you are a stream, you are a verb. I am a verb. You have a name for me. My children have a different name for me. My grandchildren have a different name and experience me differently. So feel that emptiness, self and other. Then the next line is emptiness is form. So this is to avoid nihilism. Nihilism is saying that nothing exists because things do exist. There is form. I am sitting here. The chair is there. It's not there the way that we normally think it is. And I'm not here in the way that I normally think I am or you do. But there is, that emptiness is also form. It's not separate from it. Feel that emptiness is form. Then the next phrase is, emptiness is not other than form. Emptiness is not other than form. So that is that this emptiness and form are not two things. And it's not both. It's not like there's emptiness and there's form. It's not both. Like a little bit of emptiness next to a little bit of form, and then a little more emptiness and a little more form. It's not like that. Not both. And then form is not other than emptiness. And this is that it's not neither. It's not that there's no form and no emptiness. So it's not both and it's not neither. Neither would be that there actually isn't form and there isn't emptiness. So it's not that either. So this process that's present in these few lines of the Heart Sutra, this deconstruction process, unpacking our concepts, takes us into the experience of twofold emptiness: the emptiness of self and the emptiness of phenomena. And that is the discovery that occurs in the Mahayana. The complete emptiness of self and phenomena. The earlier stages of Buddhism, there was still moments of time and partless particles that were considered real. But Mahayana came along and said, no, even those are empty. In that experience of emptiness is also a tremendous experience of space, vastness, openness. And you can't get your claws in anywhere. You can't get any ground. It's a feeling of groundlessness. And that is our true condition. It's empty, yet appearing. In that experience of emptiness of self and phenomena, is our true nature, our Buddha nature. And through that experience of emptiness, genuine compassion can arise. Compassion without reference point. Just love. Because we're not fixated on self, we can actually connect with others, feel our deep interbeing. Interbeing was a word that Thich Nhat Hanh developed. This experience takes place within the experience of emptiness. Let yourself just rest there, or your non-self rest. The self always wants to come in and start to grasp. So that's why we recite things like the Heart Sutra. In many Buddhist temples, it's done daily. Remind us of our true condition. And it's not like this emptiness just came into being right now because you noticed it. It's always there. And that's why the Buddha said we live in an illusion, because we actually don't live in the accuracy of how things actually are. They actually are empty. We are empty of a solid self. Phenomena is also empty of the solidity, all the attributes that we attribute to it. And there's a Buddhist word that for a long time I didn't really understand it. I'd never really heard that word, and it's the word reify. But once I understood it and learned it, I was like, oh, I see why they use that word in Buddhism. Reify means to make real. And so when we reify ourselves, we are creating a solidified self. And we're constantly reifying the world. It's an active, I guess you could say, project. It's a full-time job, reifying our existence, making it solid so we can operate in it. And that's why there's absolute and relative truth. Relative truth is, my name's Lama Tsultrim, your name is whatever, you live wherever, I live wherever, I am a mother, I am a grandmother, and so on. That's relative truth. I need to stop at red lights and go at green lights. If I don't, it's a problem in the relative world. So relative truth has to do with conventional truth. Conventionally, this is true. Conventionally, I am a solid entity that's not changing, that's the same today and tomorrow. That's relative truth. Absolute truth is no, you're not. There is no solid self. It's changing constantly. And it's a conglomeration of form and feeling and consciousness and so on that's created and amassed into this thing that's talking to you. And you have amassed into a thing that's now listening. But it's not that it is. It's not that it's not. It's not both. And it's not neither. That's those lines. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is not other than emptiness. Thank you. So having done that meditation, that impacts you. Now we're moving on from the meditation, in quotes, but we're going into post-meditation. And in the post-meditation, you continue holding the awareness of the meditation. And eventually, hopefully, there's a continuity of awareness that doesn't disappear when you get up from your cushion or your chair where you meditate. It's always there. It's continuity. So there's no separation between meditation and post-meditation. See, some people are writing in, we live in an illusion. We are actually empty. This is very helpful. I'm still trying to internalize and better comprehend Prajnaparamita. Yeah, Prajnaparamita is really profound. And let us know your experiences. Or, send an emoji if you feel like it. An empty emoji. Could you feel that? Could you have an experience when I was saying those words? Or did it feel like I have no idea what she's talking about. Let's see. Yeah, it seems people did. Yeah. So now I'll answer a few questions from the questions that people sent in. And let's see. I would love to hear your advice on preparing for the moment of death. I also want to be prepared as a Buddhist practitioner for my own death. Will you be offering poa or any advice? This would be a blessing. This is from Melissa in Mill Valley, California. Very important subject, death. And I think you heard in the beginning when Drimé talked about this course that's happening right now with Rhonda about how to prepare for death, and not only sort of in terms of your mind, but also in terms of what you do to prepare for those who are going to be around you when you die. What do you want to happen? Do you want a Lama to be contacted? Do you want someone to do poa for you? And do you have a directive for what should happen after you've passed away? And she really goes into this in great detail. So I really recommend this course that's happening now. I'll talk a little bit about the preparation. Really, our practice is our greatest preparation for death, our meditation practice. Because when we die, we drop the body. The mind body, it's called the Yid Kilu in Tibetan, literally the mind body, leaves this body of elements and goes on a journey. And there's a moment just after the mind body leaves the physical body when reality dawns. And there's a possibility in that moment of actually experiencing things as they really are. And if you have practiced during your life meditations like what I just did, the Prajnaparamita practice that is taught in the Feeding Your Demons course and also taught in the Kapala trainings, and any other nature of mind practice, Dzogchen, or Mahamudra, or Zen practice, any of those practices, if you have familiarized yourself with the vast, open, luminous reality, which is our true condition, then you recognize it. And the image that's used is of a child jumping into the mother's lap. The child jumps into the mother's lap because they know the mother. They're familiar. They're not afraid. Right? When you see your mother, or when you did, if your mother has passed away, as mine has, there is a trust that you can just go there. You can just jump into her lap. But if it's someone else, you don't necessarily jump into her lap. And so if you have familiarized yourself with the true condition, which is empty, vast, open space, which is also luminous and has cognition connected to it, cognizant of itself, then you're liberated at that very moment. And so your practice during your life is preparation for that moment. And if you miss that moment, it just appears for a few seconds. But if you get it, you are liberated at that very moment. And that's why when you receive certain teachings, like Dzogchen teachings, at the end, sometimes they'll say, if you're not liberated during your lifetime, you will be liberated at the moment of death if you have received this teaching. And then if you fail to recognize it, then the whole process of the bardo takes place. And throughout the bardo, there's other opportunities to recognize. And so really, that's only for practitioners, because you have to have prepared your mind to recognize the light, the luminosity, and to go toward that. So in terms of what you do actually before you die, how do you prepare for death? It's good to decide who you want to have near you when you die. This is, of course, if you are dying slowly and you have a chance to prepare. One of the things about death is we don't know when, where, or how. We could die in an accident and have no time to prepare. We could be shot or in some other way killed in a weather event, or lots of possible ways. We could die very quickly from an illness, or we could die for years. The bardo of death begins when we actually start dying. And when somebody has, say, Alzheimer's or a degenerative disease, they're actually in the bardo of dying for a long time. So that's one of the things about death, is there's a lot of unknowns about it. And I think that's why we tend to be afraid of it. It's an unknown. But if we can familiarize ourselves with our true condition and realize we are not this body, that there is a mind body, that there is an awareness which will go on, we can think of it really as letting go of one cloak, one coat that we're wearing, being freed from that. And then if we really become liberated, we will have a choice whether to take another coat or not, or perhaps to go somewhere else, not into this dimension, this human dimension. There are many other dimensions, millions. When you see these pictures of the universe that have been coming out from the Weber telescope, you really can see how vast it is, how vast the universe is, and that what we're seeing started millions or billions of years ago, light years. So preparing for death is good if you have a chance, if it's not a sudden death, to decide who you want to be with you and who you want to have informed if they can't be with you. It can be useful when someone is dying if a lama actually calls them and talks to them. I did that. I have done that several times with people who are dying when they can't talk anymore, but they can hear. Hearing is the last sense to stop functioning. It's there a lot longer than sight. And so you can offer that or read to that person. There's a book called the Chu Ying Zo in Tibetan, and The English translation is the basic space of phenomena. It's a Longchenpa text. It's quite short, or not that long. It's not a big, thick book. I don't have mine here. Mine's upstairs. And then there's a commentary that's quite long. We had an amazing course where this was taught by Esam Galse. But in any case, you can get a copy of The Basic Space of Phenomena, published by Padma Publishing, and read it to the person who's dying. And it's all about the nature of mind. And so they're constantly reminded of that. So if someone's dying who's a practitioner, if you have a copy of that, you can just go to wherever they are and just sit there and read it. And they can listen and remember, be reminded, because it just says it in different ways again and again and again. If you're with somebody who's not a Buddhist, what's important is to create a peaceful environment. Anything that they're worried about, try to help them not be worried. Maybe they're worried about a relationship that isn't resolved. Try to get them to have a conversation with that person, to come to peace with it in some way. Or there's something they haven't done, try to get that done. Whatever you can do to relieve any worries that they have, concerns, so they can be at ease as much as possible. That's important. If you're with somebody who's Christian, you could have them visualize Christ or Mother Mary, the Madonna, and become one with them. If they're Buddhist, you could encourage them to become one with the Buddha or with their Lama, their teacher, if they have that relationship. Kind of guru yoga with whoever they have faith in. That can be very powerful to really guide them in a visualization of that, whatever they believe in or have trust in. That's important. There's a process of the elements breaking down that's described in various books about death in the Buddhist tradition. There's a book called Luminous Emptiness. It's very good, by Francesca Fremantle. There's also a book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, a very good book that gives these kinds of guidances. It is good if the dying person can be near a window where they can see the sky, and to get into the position of lying on their side and gazing at the sky, because that's a metaphor for the nature of mind. We had someone die in our sangha on Whidbey Island, and when she passed away, she had her eyes open, often people do, and you can just see that she was seeing the nature of mind, just like her mouth was like, her eyes were wide open, and that's where she was going, transferring. You try to not touch the person around when they're dying, leave them alone physically, and then after they pass away, tug slightly at the top of the head. If you know a Lama who can do Poa for them, ask for Poa to be done. It can be done from a distance. And we do have POA courses at Tara Mandala. There will be one in 2023. Azam Galse is going to give it, and it is a preparation for your consciousness leaving the body through the fontanelle at the top of the head. In the practice through sound, you open a hole there. In my head, you can actually feel that hole because I've done this quite a few times. And when it's done traditionally, a piece of kusha grass is actually put in there and it sticks up. It's actually inserted into your skull. And then at the time of death, the consciousness exits through that door. They say that consciousness exits through one of the doors, and we have the doors of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the lower doors. So you want to try to avoid the lower doors and have the consciousness depart through the fontanelle. It's a little bit like the roads that leave a place. Each road goes to a different place, and those roads up here go toward the Pure Lands. Pure Lands are other dimensions that are a higher vibrational field than this one. And the classic one in Buddhism is the Pure Land of Amitabha, the Red Buddha of the West. And there's whole schools of Buddhism called Pure Land schools that are all focused on going there when you leave your body. I didn't used to believe in Pure Lands. I was like, that's kind of like heaven. I don't really believe in that. But I have had experiences now in my practice of Pure Lands. And also I had a near-death experience in Tibet in 1992, where I saw Pure Land. And they're places, but they're not solid with elements like ours, but they're still places, more like places made of light. And so in the POA practice, depending on how it's taught, you direct your mind to a Pure Land, or if it's Dzogchen POA, or the way Machik taught it, you go directly into the Dharmadhatu, the Dharmakaya, the vast open reality. Not to a form, not to a Buddha, but to luminous open awareness. The place that the person who's dying is in should be kept quiet, peaceful. It's better for people not to be crying around the dead person. Of course, if you're holding their hand, this is before they're actually dying. When they're actually dying, you shouldn't be holding their hand, because that brings the consciousness to that area of the body. But if you are before and you shed a few tears, don't worry about it. But if people are like sobbing and like, don't leave, that's disturbing, because if the person's in transition and then they're worrying about this other person, that's disturbs them. And a lot of times the dying stay because of the living. And often you hear stories about how somebody didn't pass away until their daughter came, or their wife, or someone that they are very close to and they wanted to see before they go, or they want to be with them. They'll wait until that person gets there and then go. And sometimes dying takes a long time. Like, it seems like they should be going, but it goes for days. And that's how death is. It just has its own time. It's not necessarily quick and easy, just like birth. Although with birth, we have ways we can hurry it up. With death, it just has its own way. So that's a little bit of guidance for death and some book recommendations for that. Let's see if we have time. Maybe one more question. Angela Lee in Arizona is asking about her work, and she's studying Buddhism and finding it very patriarchal. She says, I'm an Asian queer woman and a Buddhist, and because of this environment in her school, she's wondering if she should study something else. And what I would suggest is possibly transferring to another school. It sounds like that department that you're in has some leadership that is patriarchal, and that does exist. So there are also other places that are better in that sense, and perhaps I could do a little research for you and give you some recommendations, and we could send you a private message about that, Angela. But don't give up. There's wonderful women Buddhist scholars for you to study with, and wonderful male Buddhist scholars who are not patriarchal for you to study with. So there was also a question about sex, and somebody who says that Jigme Lengpa states that sodomy is sexual misconduct. And so what do I think about that? Or and then the Dalai Lama said he can't write scripture. All I can say about that is that a lot of these things are coming from trying to control society, trying to have society follow certain norms. And they're not necessarily relevant. They're coming out of limitations, cultural limitations, etc. When I first was studying Buddhism, and I studied with Trungpa Rinpoche, and I was quite good friends with Allen Ginsberg, who was also studying with Trungpa Rinpoche. I traveled with him a lot, and I was his meditation instructor. And of course, he was gay man, and he was one of the first really openly gay men. He didn't try to hide it. He actually got arrested for it. And he was very open about sex. And he asked Trungpa Rinpoche one day about it. And Rinpoche said something that is, I think, very wise. He said, relationships are about communication. If the communication is good and cultivates bodhicitta, then that's a positive relationship. It doesn't have anything to do with how you express that physically or what your genders are. It's about communication. And so if you are gay and you're hearing about this, these traditional things, there's a lot of things in those traditional teachings that, to me, I just feel like those are limits that come from the society at the time that that person lived. And so please don't feel unwelcome or that there's something wrong with you because of the way you have sex. There isn't. It's really about the communication, the generation of love and connection with each other, however that's expressed. We have these bodies and they like different things, and that's okay. So yeah, rest at ease, at least from my point of view. As the Dalai Lama says, you can't change those ancient writings. But I think a lot of these things are being revisioned and re-looked at now. So I think that's all we have time for today in terms of questions. I do have more questions that I'll try to get to next time. And so let's gather together our hearts and minds now. And I think next time I'll talk about abortion, because I think people wonder about that too, in terms of Buddhism. So I'll talk about that, especially now because of the situation in this country. In any case, let's gather together our hearts and minds. And feel our interbeing, our interconnectedness. And send love out to each other. And dedicate the merit of our time together for the benefit of all beings. Any merit, any positive energy we've accumulated, may it benefit all beings. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Drimé, for your support and all these nice messages. Gratitude. Take a moment and look at those. Yes, please talk about abortion. Okay, I will. Next time, that's Nina. Nina Rao, nice that you're here. We should have you sometime come and sing here. Nina is the manager of Krishna Das. She's actually Indian, from India, but lives here and has lived here most of her life. And she's an amazing kirtan singer and has worked quite a bit with Lopan Chandra on developing melodies for the mantras of the 21 Taras. And it's her voice, actually, that we hear in the beginning of Lama Live and that we'll hear now. So glad that you're here, Nina. Yeah, there's the Precious Treasury of the Basic Space of Phenomena, Longchenpa. That book I was saying to read to someone who's dying. Okay, well, lots of love, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Lama, for being with us today and embracing us with your attention and wisdom, as always. May you be well, healthy, and happy. Thank you. And thank you to all of you for keeping showing up for Lama and each other. We are in constant awe of our beautiful community. Thank you. Please save the date and join us for a special live Global Sangha Practice Day on August 1st to celebrate Chokur Duchen, one of the 4 main Buddhist holidays celebrated by all Tibetan Buddhists. During those times, it's believed that the effects of positive or negative actions are multiplied 10 million times. Look out for links in our socials. Registration is not required. And please remember of that beautiful opportunity to receive Delung from Lama Tsultrim on July 30th for very powerful practices cultivated in our lineage. It doesn't happen often and it's completely free of charge. So at this point, I'd like to remind you that there is an opportunity to offer your dana to Lama Tsultrim, and you probably noticed that I've already posted the link in the chat. Dana is a Pali word meaning generosity, and according to the Buddha, generosity is one of the central practices of a spiritual life. In the act of giving, we develop our ability to let go of attachment, cultivate an attitude of open sharing, and acknowledge the interconnectedness of all beings. So may we meet again and again on the path, and may all beings benefit everywhere. Thank you.
Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re